And Director Randall.
Here.
Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak on items that are not on the agenda? See anyone? So moving on to the regular meeting agenda. We start with certificates of appreciation to former Director Seaton and Sukumel for their service on the board, to the district on the board. We really appreciate their years of dedication to their work here. They were not able to attend tonight, but we will get the certificates to them, and Delia did a great job of making certificates. So we do all want to commend them for their efforts in working with us on this board. And then we move on to election of board officers. Chuck, can you talk us through the right way to do this?
Yes, and Delia's outlined this in her agenda memo. So basically, one of you needs to make a nomination for who you would like to be president, and then someone needs to make a nomination for who they would like to be vice president, and then we will vote on it.
Okay. I would like to nominate Nancy Marsh as president. Oh, and I guess I'm still running this meeting. And is there a second? Matthew?
We don't need second for nominations.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Matthew.
You beat me to it. I was going to nominate Nancy as well.
Anybody can nominate anybody, so
yeah.
It's an open.
She's done a great job as vice president, so we are looking forward to having her as our president. And we vote on that first, yes?
Yeah. Are there any other nominations?
Oh, yeah. Are there any other
can we
nominations?
take extra nominations now, or do we vote on it first?
So
first, we should see if anyone else wants to, if someone wants to nominate someone else for president. And seeing no other nominations, we should probably still have a vote, yes?
yes.
Okay, so I would, let me call the question on the nomination of Nancy Marsh. My nomination, I guess there's no second. Let's have a vote on Nancy Marsh as president. Do we have a roll call?
Director Dye.
Yes.
Director Clark.
Yes.
Director Marsh.
Yes.
Director Randall.
Yes.
And Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0 to elect Nancy as president.
We do this every year.
I nominate Jen Randall for vice president.
Wow. Any other nominations?
Jen, do you accept that nomination?
Yes. I think I'd look at that. I really appreciated Delia's memo, which outlined the duties.
Right, Nancy, you are
nominations.
Oh,
You can go ahead and vote. Yeah.
Am I taking over immediately now? That's always just. That's really, it feels weird the whole way it happens. Okay, Jen Randall has been nominated for vice president. I didn't hear any other nominations, so we call that for a vote.
All right, I will call the roll call. Director Dye.
yes.
Director Clark.
Yes.
Director Marsh.
Yes.
Director Randall. And Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0 to have Jen Randall as vice president.
You have two culture consultants as president and vice president, so you're a little bit in trouble.
I'm going to do a lot of team building activities.
Have a lot of conversations.
Oh, no.
I just want to mention that when we go back to in-person meetings, you'll have a gavel. And typically when you change officers, you hand over the gavel. So, yeah, unfortunately.
Matthew, comment?
I have a question for Bill or Chuck. We have only 2 officers, but 5 people, and 3 is a quorum. What happens if a meeting starts and we don't have the president or vice president, but we have a quorum?
Yeah, we appoint a president pro tem for just that meeting.
Thank you.
Good to know. After 18 years on the board, Matthew, you learned something new.
Well, I have one district down here where no one wants to be president. So literally every meeting we appoint a president pro tem. I'm well versed in it, sadly enough.
There are some, it's not always rewarding, but
No.
we do it for the community.
There's a little black down.
I got it, people.
Hi, Fran.
Okay, then we have to move on to parks and recreation activities. First, Director Dye has put together a pretty comprehensive timeline and another one of those documents that's just a good review document to catch up on what the park and recreation center process has been to date, and particularly the degree of community outreach and interaction. So Director Dye, you want to take that away?
Thank you.
I mean, Chuck, can you share it on the screen?
I sure can.
So there were some,
Page to it.
while you're doing it, let me just speak to, there was some discussion about the care that we have taken to include the community in our discussions and planning about the park and the recreation center. And I thought it was helpful to put that together in a document that showed what we have done. Also, specifically when I was at the outreach booth by the post office on December 3rd regarding the community recreation center, a number of people came up to me and said, when is this going to happen? What's the timeline? And so forth. So I thought it was useful for us to go through this and talk about, just how long we've been working on this and what our future timeline potentially looks like. You can see I have dates in the left-hand column. I have the actions in the center. And then the two right-hand columns, one says that it was done at a public meeting with minutes that are posted on the website. And the right-hand column is that a report was written and that is posted on the Parks website. So it starts with the GCSD vote to create the Community Services District. Should have probably started 10 years earlier when people were agitating to create it. But we start with the creation of the Granada Community Services District in 2014. In 2015, and I do want to commend Pat Tierney, who's been involved with the Parks Advisory Committee from the very beginning. He's a professor of recreation and he has helped craft some excellent surveys of the community that have given us a lot of opinion. So in 2015, the first survey was sent to 2,235 addresses and got 609 responses, which is a pretty darn good response. And they put together a report. 66% said a community recreation center was very or moderately important, and they wanted a lot of recreational options. In 2017, the San Mateo Resource Conservation District, which is GCSD's environmental arm, they do the environmental work for GCSD, submits the Burnham Strip Natural Resources Management Plan approved by the board. And then in 2017, to kind of get the park process going, this is something that I helped make happen because I wanted to get this moving. We looked at 3 different landscape architecture firms and chose K&K Designs from Half Moon Bay, and they proposed 3 park layouts, not for people to choose among, but to give people an idea of what the options could be on that site. And that was discussed at a public meeting, and then and there were 3 options. And then the outreach efforts for the park plan were reviewed. The advisory committee did some outreach efforts. We sent out a newsletter to the whole community with information about the planning process for the park. Now we're into 2018. So we're already like a year after we started. We sent a newsletter asking for public input. We had a community outreach event held on the Burnham Strip with 70 comments. We sent another newsletter in September of 2019. We had a second community survey mailed and 508 responses. Then a report was put together on the survey results. As it turns out, all of the park needs greater than or closer to 50% support are included in the park plan, except we could not put a community swimming pool. The site just doesn't work for that. 66% said a community recreation center was very or moderately important, and a childcare room was supported by 41%. Again, the minutes are on the website. Then we had an outreach workshop for the park layout at Granada Elementary, where people were able to move things around on maps and figure out where things should go. Put together a report on that meeting. And then the board discussed the results of all those outreach efforts. At this point now we're in the end of 2019. In June of 2020, the board looked at the preliminary plan that Burnham Park that K&K had put together and felt that it was an appropriate plan to send out to the community for more public input. We put up the map at the foot of Avenue Portola. The Parks Advisory Committee in a public meeting reviewed the plans. In September 2020, we sent a postcard to all residents asking for more feedback. And then the board reviewed recommendations from the Parks Advisory Committee, comments from the community, and provided direction for the park. And then finally, in October of 2020, so 3 years after the first efforts were begun, the board approved the conceptual park plan. And then in December of 2020, we hired a local architect to review the fire station suitability for a community recreation center. In February of 2020, the Parks Advisory, no, I think that's 2021 actually. No, 2020. Advisory Committee met with staff from Half Moon Bay and Pacifica Recreation community centers to get their advice. Their advice was lots of storage, high demand for room and kitchen for events, and a need for importance of on-site staff. And then in March of 2020, the board reviews a report on the suitability of the old fire station for a community recreation center. The building would work, but it was not ideal. There's a lot of long, skinny rooms. Because of the way that those bays were set up, you couldn't take out those walls. And so you're going to have a lot of long, skinny rooms without windows. It is also was not on the market. In May of 2021, the board approved K&K contract to provide plans to go to the county. At about that time, GCSD learned that the Picasso property was for sale. They appointed a negotiator, an architect. We had an architect review the Picasso property for suitability to meet the needs of the community as established for a community recreation center, found that it could meet the needs. In July, when we opened Pump Track, which was a very happy event, we also had a booth with the park plans at that point for the community to take a look at. In July, the board approved the purchase of the Picasso property and a 3-to-1 public vote, and approved a lease agreement for 2 years with the current operator. And then at the same meeting, the board approved a contract with the engineering consultants to provide drainage, parking, and grading plans for the park. In February of 2022, the board reviewed preliminary financial plans for the park. And then we started monthly meetings with the park design team, which is our landscape architects, the civil engineers, the resource conservation district, and the board ad hoc committee. In April of 2022, we sent another newsletter out to everyone, letting people know what was going on with the park. In April, we approved Group 4 architect for the design of the community recreation center and continued research on the feasibility of including licensed daycare. From now until, in May of 2022, we reviewed the latest version of the park plan with revisions to handle storm flow, to do some environmental mitigation of the drainages and changes to the parking. And the board agreed that that was consistent with the previous approval. We had an outreach event at the Burnham Strip looking for opinions on the styles of park furnishings and the park name. In September, we environmental review of the park, and they started work. Then in September of this year, we approved an additional 1-year extension for the current preschool operator. In October, we reviewed the preliminary design for the community center and some research on the feasibility of including licensed daycare. We sent a postcard to everyone in the community, or to all the customers, with information about the event on December 3rd and a link to the online survey. We also provided the link on our website and various other places, and we held the event on the 3rd from 9:30 to 1, with a lot of people coming by to look at the pictures and provide feedback on the designs and the look of a potential community recreation center. And then from here on, it becomes more speculative, but this just shows you this is a place you can look at and see that the steps that we have taken to reach out to the community and include the community in the planning process, both for the park and for the community recreation center. So future milestones. Nancy's going to report on the survey. I think it closes in a few days. So we will have that. We will continue research into options for the community recreation center. This fall, and for the next 6 months, we're going to be looking at financing and phasing options for both the park and the community center. And fall of this year into spring next year, we're going to have all these consultants complete the numerous required plans for the park and community recreation center, including both a management and a finance plan. And next spring, we expect to approve the final package of plans. So exciting to go to the county for review by local agencies, county departments, federal and state agencies, plus an application for a coastal development permit. Again, in spring, we will also at the same time approve the analysis of the plans to be submitted under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, to be submitted to the county. We have a specialized consultant working on that now. Next spring through fall, there will be next spring through fall, there will be a lot of opportunities for additional public comment, both to our board directly and also to all the government agencies that will be reviewing these plans. So, for example, the environmental review process, the CEQA process, will have an opportunity for public comment, as will many of the other ways that this will be reviewed. And then spring and fall, we'll be looking at financing and phasing options for consideration and budgeting. We will keep in mind we have to budget for operations, and we will have to have financial and operational plans. Spring 2024, if all goes well, we will have the required approvals and go out to bid, and maybe we can begin construction in 2024. This is going to be posted. I know I just went through a lot of that really fast, but it's going to be posted on the website, and I think it's helpful for people to just take a look back on the steps that we've taken to involve the community in everything, all the decisions we make and all the things that we do, and to give some idea of they're pretty vague milestones, but just what the next steps are for the process of moving forward with this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Matthew's got his hand raised.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank Director Dye profusely for putting this long table together. I'm sure it took a lot of time. It's very succinct. It is fully illustrative of the care, thought, and approach that the district has taken, and shows that we have done our very best to involve the community at every step and have responded to their input, and that we will continue to do so. And I'm sure this is already planned, but let's make sure this table itself goes on the website, and Barbara's ready to put more check marks on it as things happen. So thanks, Barbara.
It was fun to do. It made me feel good.
Jill, go ahead.
Maybe I should let other people go first. I have a lot of questions.
The usual process is if you
Okay.
take board questions and then public comment, and then if there's any board action, then that happens next.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Barbara. It's beautiful. It's a very easy to read, very clear, very well done. Questions. Okay. So first question, Horizon Water and Environment's going to conduct the initial study. So
Yes.
they're going to do biological and cultural surveys to figure out environmental site constraints or hurdles that we might face during the permitting process. And this will also possibly, reveal funding sources. Do we know when these biological or cultural surveys will take place?
Yeah, we're working right now. They're working on the project description, and we had I won't call it a hiccup, but we're due to some of the early financing costs or actual costs of construction and whatnot, we're probably going to have to phase this project. So they've had to feed that into the project description. But once we get that project description nailed down, they're ready to go on the site and start the biological and the cultural and all the other stuff.
And the RCD, again, I don't know if you all realize, but they, as a part of the creation of GCSD, they are our official environmental arm, and they will be playing a big role in working with Horizon on getting that going.
What does the RCD do? What role will they play with Horizon?
They're as if they're our environmental staff. So they will just be helping to answer questions and so forth.
Those not familiar with the acronyms, it's the Resource Conservation District, and GCSD was required to have an MOU with them as part of our LAFCO certification to be our environmental partner.
Okay.
So right now we're working with a biological consultant from the RCD and a drainage and so forth specialist.
So will the biological consultant from the RCD do the biological survey, or is it the Horizon? And we're not sure when they'll do it because they're doing a project description first.
Correct.
Yeah, we literally just brought them on a couple months ago. So we've had 2 meetings, I think, since then. And the last one was where we discussed the project description and whatnot.
Okay. A question about the southern riparian portion. It's not included in the park plan. Was it considered? Because it seems like restoration of a degraded riparian habitat would increase our chances of getting a restoration grant. Or was it just?
Oh, you mean the area that has, the big area of real wetlands? Yes, we would. Yeah.
Portion.
We would love
Right
to do that at some time. I think my hope is that at some point we'll get some mitigation money to fix that. That's going to be expensive, and it is not included in the scope of this project.
Is that mostly easement for Caltrans and County?
No, there's a lot of it that's on our property.
Okay.
A good portion of it is easement.
Yeah, big part of it. Yeah, it has the same easement the rest of the property does, and because the whole thing narrows, it does. The easement, which stays the same length, is still pretty big. But yeah, it would be great to do that project, but I'm hoping we can get some mitigation dollars at some point to clean that up. It's not a part of this project.
But do we consider it to see if we could get restoration grants included in this project, or is it just something we didn't consider? Just curious.
I think, well, I don't know. I'm not certainly the one that made the whole decision, but I think working with the RCD, actually, we feel that that's a very large project. And this is what we're doing now is a park project, not a major habitat restoration project. And I think the thinking was we would focus on creating the park and hope that at some point we can get the resources to improve that area, which would be great.
My next question is, I was not clear if we were going to have two separate projects, the park and the community center, and then two different EIRs. But it sounds like we're going to merge them and there'll
And
be
that's
one EIR.
That's item D on the agenda, on this
Okay.
Parks and Recreation. I think we can discuss it there if you're okay to wait.
Sure. The Gazette newsletter and the postcards. So these were used in past outreach events. Who are they mailed to?
Can Delia speak to that maybe?
We've had a couple different mailing lists. I think the earlier ones may have been Recology address lists because we do not do any direct billing, so we don't maintain a database of addresses. So we get that from Recology because they have to bill the residents. They're not always parcel owners, sometimes they're renters, but it goes out to that list. The more recent list, we actually purchased a list which was from the county database. So that's
and all residents of the district?
Within the
there was over 2,000. I forget the exact number. It's about 2,100 some odd mailers that went out. And very few
who did they?
All of those is that they go to people who are in the district, who are ratepayers or taxpayers within the district.
So they went to ratepayers though?
When the county list would be ratepayers.
Yeah. The reason I ran is I had a whole bunch of neighbors tell me I had to do it. And one of the reasons is many of them didn't receive these postcards and they were feeling left out. And so I would encourage the board to rethink sending to only ratepayers because it doesn't seem equitable when we should be surveying residents and
how would you suggest we get that mailing list? Do you have an idea of how to get that mailing list?
I actually would suggest doing flyers on porches because we can do it for free. We can use Half Moon Bay High School teenagers who need 30 hours volunteer work. And I've used them before and they're very good. And they just want their hours. So they just go and lickety split. That's the way I would, do it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Good idea. We usually do post in the post office. We usually try to post on Nextdoor, but it's not easy to get to everybody. But yeah, renters have always been a challenge, but that's a good idea.
And that's one reason we put the map up. So,
but the one thing about not getting the point of view of this entire area that's adjacent to the strip, which are renters, is they're going to use the park more than anyone. And it's better to just be transparent and not try and, I do not assume anyone's not trying to be transparent, but we got to appear transparent no matter what. And we're accountable to them. So we're accountable to all residents, not just to ratepayers. And everybody pays sewer fees. If you use the sewer, you're paying the fee either directly or you're paying it indirectly because it's part of your rent or your lease agreement. It states in I was a landlord at one time and I've been a renter. And it's always stated in the agreement, because you can't have sewer. It's not like gas or electricity or water. You can't parcel it out individually. It'd be too hard to figure out, well, is it vacant? Is somebody living there? So sewer fees are different, but everybody pays them. So we should be notifying all residents, I think.
Yeah, no, our intent was to get to as many people as possible. We hadn't had, with only 2 staff, I didn't know about the high school students, but with 2 staff, we wouldn't have said leaflets, but that's a good idea using those resources for community service time.
They need to be organized.
Can I just add, Jill, you may have more questions, but just to build on your point, if we did a flyer, we could do QR codes. So then people could just take picture of the code from the flyer and they can just do the survey that way. It would be a really easy way to grab a lot of folks. And that way we have to do a link on a flyer, which people wouldn't be able to type into a computer.
I'm smiling because Michelle Dragony has insisted that we have QR codes on for all the years since she joined the PAC. So our last two postcards and Gazette had the QR codes.
Amazing. Yeah.
I will also recommend for people who don't know how to use QR codes or just have difficulty on the internet. I'm just thinking of older people and even younger people sometimes can't figure it out. It's nice to have a person listed on the flyer who can help them either talk them through on the phone, or I've even gone to people's houses and put my mask on and help them figure it out, because I just think it's important to get as many viewpoints as possible, because in the CEQA process, if we don't get all those viewpoints and we don't, they don't feel heard, that's when we get attacked. And I just don't want to be attacked during CEQA. I want it to go as smooth as possible. Because it's going to be a beautiful park. It's going to be, great. And the community center too. I just want it to go as smooth as possible, I guess. Let's see. I think I don't have any more questions.
I'd like to make a comment about this, Jill. The first couple of times we sent out all those postcards and the first newsletters, I personally observed dozens and dozens of them in the trash can at the post office for the next 2 days. And so, we have made great efforts, and you can't make people pay attention. And I have, I worked for other organizations way back in the 80s trying to reach everyone. And lo and behold, it is impossible to reach everyone and get responses. So I think your suggestions are good, but we just can't possibly hope for 100% coverage.
I agree. And I know that's it's a huge task, and I will volunteer right now to coordinate with the high school and to supervise the teenagers if you decide to go that route.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other comments that I'm just going to say specifically on the timeline before we head to the Community Recreation Center? Okay, just a brief on the proposed Community Recreation Center. We had a lot of good questions at the October meeting. And as Barbara noted, we had the December 3rd event and the kickoff of the survey. There are 2 more days we don't have survey results because it goes through Saturday. So I will pop it up again on Nextdoor. But so far we've had 481 responses to that survey. And previously we've had 500 to 600. So it's not a bad response from that range. We still are in the hundreds. So more to come on the response to that survey, either January or February. I'm not sure what Don's Group 4 Architecture is managing that survey, and I'm not sure what their timing is. We also had a number of questions on how do we know what size to make the community center? How do we know it will be used? Do we have any usage data? Do we have needs analysis? And we've been working on that. Eddie Bealey at Half Moon Bay Ted Adcock Center is just super generous with his time as a benchmark partner. And Dawn has more information from some of the other centers that she's working with. So we're working on putting that together. I did visit I visited 4 centers in San Mateo that were brought up by a member of the public at the last meeting. And they are 2 have existing licensed childcare facilities. They are still 2 to 3 times the size of the building that we are contemplating. But we have a lot more detail to work through, including our certification, the zoning, and so on. But we will try to put together a more robust than we had last time presentation that looks at kind of all the angles of consideration on the Community Recreation Center and what goes into planning it. So more to come January or February on that. Barbara.
And I was at the booth with Dawn on December 3rd, and it was nice. There's quite a few community members who either wandered by or were going to the post office and were interested to see the posters they provided. So it was yet another way, and got some enthusiastic and very opinionated in some cases community input that day as well.
Right. Any other comments or questions on the Community Recreation Center? We don't have a lot of new information today. No, we'll move on to the park. Any other update on the park?
I guess just we're had. Oh, do you want to do it, Chuck?
Either way, yeah. I've spoken. We had a all hands meeting. I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and we had a lot of discussions about, again, the phasing and the critical paths. And we're getting hard up on the holidays right now, so it's tough to get people together, as you can imagine. But we're going to try and set a meeting up next week with Tom Conroy to talk about critical paths and phasing, and making the stretch run to getting these pieces in place so we can submit the drawings and whatnot to the county and start the permit process.
And let me just add that Nancy and I met with, and then I had a subsequent meeting with the Resource Conservation District to talk about funding opportunities for the park. We were talking about taking some of the parts of the design and figuring out ways that we can present them potentially for independent funding.
Okay, any other comments on the park update? No, we'll move on to a decision regarding the scope of county permit submittal.
Okay, you want to take this, Barbara? Or you want me to?
Why don't you take it and I'll jump in if I have 2 cents to add.
Okay. So when we first envisioned this project, we've done the design for the entire park, and we've done the entire, I should say, preliminary design for the entire park, and we've done the preliminary design for the Community Recreation Center. And as we've discussed, we've had some early, big picture cost estimating, and it looks like we're going to have to do this project in phases. But in talking with our consultants, the CEQA people, the civil engineers, Tom from Kikuchi and Kankel, we all seem to believe it's the best idea to get the park designed, get the community center designed, and submit those as a collective package for permitting. And that way we can get the permitting. We have to do that with CEQA anyway, because one of the rules of CEQA, you have to look at the entirety of the project. Get all that permitted, and at the same time, we'll be looking at the phasing, and that'll be part of the permitting process. So that's from a staff level, consultant level, that's probably the preferred path to go on.
Let me just say that the consultants felt that it would be helpful to have a board direction to that effect. So for discussion, let me go ahead and make a motion that we prepare a package for submittal to the county that includes both the park and the Community Recreation Center to be submitted for permit approval.
I'll second that. And I'll comment that as a CEQA consultant for many years, this is absolutely the way to go. And as Chuck mentioned, relatively recent changes in CEQA highly encourage this approach rather than piecemealing it. And in terms of time and money, this is absolutely the way to go.
And all our consultants want us to do it this way. So, but it is, yes, they wanted some board direction on this.
Any more comments or questions? Jill, did you have questions specifically on this one?
I'm sorry, what, Nancy?
I thought you had a question that you set aside on this item.
Oh, about merging the two into one. Yes. Yeah. I also wonder if we do restoration projects in that riparian strip all the way to the south later, would that be considered piecemealing if we add that later? I'm asking specifically Chuck or Matthew. CEQA experts.
Yeah, well, and Bill Parkin does a lot of CEQA too. I can't call I've done CEQA from a staff level, but I can't call myself CEQA expert. So,
You know a lot more than I do.
Chuck, you want me to?
Sure, if you can, Bill. Yeah, that'd be great.
I do a lot of CEQA litigation. So what is the timing you envision for adding that? I mean, I can envision restoration, if it's done as we go through the process, that's probably not going to be an issue. If we don't have an envision it at this time, I don't think it's ultimately going to be a huge problem. There are a number of exemptions for restoration as well. So particularly given this isn't, I think it's a 5-acre limitation on the restoration exemption. So I think we're probably okay, but it's certainly something we can look at more as we move forward and be aware of.
We just wanted.
Inevitably, the county and Caltrans will have to be involved in restoration in that area. And if we want to build this park in this decade, we need to do that as a separate project.
That was kind of where I was going, because the focus since 2017 has been on the park and trying to move the park. So I would be anxious about anything more that would slow that down. And with the easements and those two agencies, that would definitely slow it down. But all of our focus in the conversation with the community has been on park. And from the kind of beginning of becoming a CSD with Parks and Recreation, there's been a lot of energy on active recreation and focusing on that. So we haven't, up to this point, either from my time on the PAC or just a couple of years on the board, focused on restoration projects as really integrated with the Parks and Recreation.
It seems like if you took the riparian, that southern portion, and you merged it with the village green and used native grass, you'd have a nice restoration project that RCD could, find funding for. I'm just spitballing, but I just think it's something somebody should say. Often those projects get streamlined because they want you to do restoration, so they speed them up. That's it. I'm done.
And I've just screen shared a map of the Burnham Strip there, and you can see the Caltrans right-of-way goes substantially up into that Burnham Strip Park, more so than most people think, and then to the right side, obviously, as well. So people keep talking about this right-of-way. It's pretty substantial.
Can you move it toward the other end, Chuck, the south end? That's where Jill is focused on, more toward Coronado Street.
Yeah, can you all see the south end now?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yes, I can see it.
It's the green blob.
It's me.
The big green part. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Here's Coronado.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our portion is green blob, right?
Yeah, it's the dark green is us, and the hatched green below that dark green, or whatever color that is, the hatched area is Caltrans right of way. So we've got the dark green from the south moving to the left or to the north is that yellowish mustard color. That's all us. All the other stuff is Caltrans right of way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Chuck.
All right.
Okay. Barbara's got
her hand up.
Yes, Barbara. I was just going to say you have a motion on the table.
Yes, well, we can have discussion of the motion, but I think we're going to have our hands full with the park. And I feel like this is a sufficiently different project. We're not really piecemealing. It's something that if we have time and energy in the future, and again, I'm hoping that at some point there'll be some mitigation dollars for Caltrans. It's a perfect site for them to decide they want to do some habitation improvements to as mitigation for another project. So to stop now and then try to do a restoration plan for this property, I think would delay us a lot. And I don't know. I understand Jill's point, but I think it's okay right now to move forward the way we are planning.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we have a motion on the table. Barbara moved, Matthew seconded. Do we have a vote on that, Chuck?
Okay, Director Dye? Director Clark?
Aye.
Aye.
Director Marsh?
Aye.
Director Randall?
Aye.
And Director Grant?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 5-0 to submit the package in total.
Okay, we'll move on to then public hearing, consideration of recology rate increase for garbage and recycling disposal and related fee resolution in accordance with Articles 8C and D of the California Constitution, Proposition 218. Chuck, can we have the staff report on those rate increases?
So back in December of 2017, your district entered into an agreement with Recology of the Coast, who provides garbage and recycling services, for a 10-year agreement for them to provide those services. As part of, and maybe for the newer board members, as whenever you raise rates in a government now, it's subject to the Prop 218 process, which basically means we have to send out a mailer to all the customers affected by these rate increases, whether it be sewer or garbage. And then we tell them, we're proposing a rate increase. We're going to have a public hearing, generally 60 days from when we start this thing. By law, you need 45 days of notice. And we tell them what the rate structure is and all that kind of stuff. And I've included that Prop 218 notice in the packet. So the board was first shown this at our October meeting. They directed staff to begin the Prop 218 process. We sent out the necessary flyers. And here we come to today. With the public hearing, which Nancy will have to open it at some point in time after our discussion. And I'll report that we've received 3 letters of protest from different people. 2 of them are in your packet. The 3rd I sent to you separately today via email. So we've received 3 written protests in total.
And the threshold, Chuck, for protests in Prop 218?
Is half. So it's
It would be
the
like,
intent of the law was good, but it's very rarely met. So
yeah, it would be in the thousands.
yes, I've known 2 that have been successful, and they've been districts with like 400 and 600 people. So it's a tough bar to cross. So Nancy, that's my staff report, and then I've reported on the written protest received. So if you could open the public hearing and request public comment.
Okay, I'm opening a public hearing. Any members of the public who would like to comment on the proposed recology rate increase, please raise your hand under the reactions button. And you, Barbara, you're up first.
I just want to point out that if you look at the documentation of this, it's very interesting. Most of the costs are increased by the CPI, which they are assuming is 4.19%. So the increase is larger. And the reason that the increase is larger is, I would guess, almost entirely because of fuel costs, which have gone up for them 39.44%. And I thought that was an interesting perspective on this rate increase that by our contract with Recology, they calculate it, and we have at this point, no reason to doubt their calculations, but it's fuel costs that are causing the major increase. And I thought that was something worth noting. Thank you.
Yeah, and Chris Porter, who's our contact at Recology, she's the general manager of Recology of the Coast. She does a great job of laying all this stuff out so we can go and check the costs and whatnot. And like Barbara says, gas is the major one.
So let me check again. Any comments from any members of the public? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And we'll move on to the board action to adopt the fee increase. Do we have a motion? Barbara moved.
I'll make a motion to adopt the fee resolution for increasing the garbage and recycling disposal fees. Or
I'll second.
Matthew seconds. Any further discussion? My only comment is it's really contractual and all of the proposals are in line with the terms of the contract. And Chuck, this is for the next 5 years of the contract?
Correct, the next 5 years, and we'll follow that rate adjustment schedule on page 47.
Okay. No other comments, then can we go to a vote, Chuck?
Okay, Director Dye?
aye.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Marsh?
Aye.
Director Randall?
Aye.
Director Grant?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next item, number 5 is consideration of a resolution appointing our representatives to the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side and alternates. We have 2 positions on the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side board and 2 alternates. To date, or over the last year, our representatives have been Director Dye and Director Clark. I don't know how we normally do this. We do nominations or volunteers. I think it's been volunteers.
It depends what's happening at SAM at any given time, but yes, we generally take nominations.
Okay.
I volunteer or volunteer to be nominated.
Barbara, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I feel as if this is one place where having experience helps, and it's good for GCSD. It's complicated, and I would be happy to continue. I think once I'd be happy to hand it over at some point, but I think this is something that it's useful to have someone who has spent some time dealing with the finances and so forth to handle this position.
I know you'll cover it later, but you had after a lot of arduous work, a win in the audit report and the way that SAM tracks their infrastructure projects and investments. So that has taken quite a lot of extra work. Matthew.
Just so people, can I just say, just so people know, SAM is now tracking what they spend in infrastructure and keeping track of it so that the money that doesn't get spent is accounted for and the projects actually get done that we pay them money to do. And for the first time, this time, it's just happened, the audit recognized the fact that the previous audits, I tried really hard to deal with this, but said that SAM was losing money every year because they weren't counting the money that we give them from infrastructure projects as cash revenue for accounting reasons. But this year, the audit finally said, it looks like, if you look at it this way, it's a loss. But when you count in the capital contributions, that SAM is fully solvent. And I think that's important because the agencies pay our share. We pay every month, we pay 1/12 of all the costs of SAM.
Barbara, I'm going to cut you off because you're on a different agenda item.
Oh, no, I'm explaining why. All right. Yes. I'll be fine.
It was a very big deal and many months of lobbying for it, I know, and advocating. Matthew.
I will reiterate essentially what Director Dye just said. SAM is a deep dive. Anyone going in cold will be on a long, arduous hill of learning of what the hell's going on. And I will not happily, but willingly continue as a SAM board member. but as per the JPA, the Joint Powers Agreement that governs SAM, we have to nominate 2 alternates as well for when the regular representatives can't make the meetings. So I think we already had one, and we need another alternate, another request or volunteer. So we need one more.
I should note that for those who don't know, the SAM board meets twice a month, and the board members, one sits on the operations committee and one sits on the finance committee. So there are those additional meetings as well. I've been an alternate and have been going to the meetings, and Matthew is right, they are quite educational. If you're an alternate, you get the meeting pack. You get basically everything but a vote, but it is a really interesting process. Jen, you have your hand up.
Well, I think you actually answered my question because I was going to say if it's very complicated, what's the best way to then actually learn how to do it? And so it sounds like you're saying being an alternate is a better way to sort of get your toes in the water and learn how it all works.
We do see here, and we review it every meeting. There's an update on SAM and what's going on with SAM. But there's also just the dynamic of 3 agencies in a board meeting, and the interplay between them when they are very different structures and don't have the same kind of focus. You know, one is a city, one is a water and sewer agency, one is a sewer and parks agency, and they just take different views on the same thing sometimes. So it's an interesting dynamic to watch. And I really would recommend to everybody to sit in on the SAM meetings. They're short. They tend to be like 7 to 8 or 8:30.
No, they can't go beyond 9. You have to have a vote of the board to extend the meeting after 9 p.m.
You might want to consider something like that.
And Jen and Jill, you know, we talked about meeting with Bill. That might be a good 4-person meeting with you two, myself and Bill, and I can give you more background. Like they've been saying, treatment plants are much more, you know, I run 4 treatment plants down here. They're much more complicated. There's a lot more background. You know, our collection system is a bunch of pipes underground with a pump station. That's a little more straightforward. So I can give you some background on that stuff, and then you can get your feet wet a little bit.
I'm actually okay to sort of step back, since I've stepped into the president role here from alternate. If and we do this every year. We get, you know, we do this appointment every year. So I would favor keeping Matthew and Barbara on, but if Jen and Jill are both interested, nominate you as alternates, which means you sit in if one of them doesn't go, but you get the agenda, you get all the background, and are welcome to sit in on all the meetings as well, if that is satisfactory to you.
Sounds great.
Jen, are you interested in being an alternate?
Sure.
There's a first and a second, and they take them in
Jill
order.
can be the first and I'll be the second.
Thank you.
Okay. We need a
Yeah, we need a
resolution.
motion to appoint, from your discussion, appoint
I'll make
Barbara
this.
and okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint Director Dye and Director Clark to the 2 representatives, and Director Grant and Director Randall in that order to the alternates as our appointments to SAM.
This is a resolution. I think it should be mentioned in the motion.
That is a resolution? Oh, that we're making a resolution.
To approve the resolution appointing our representatives and alternates.
Thank you, Matthew, for the language.
Second.
I'll second. Whatever.
Any further discussion?
Can I make a quick correction? The JPA only requires 1 alternate. Our district elected to go for 2. So I just wanted to make that minor correction there. And our resolution is worded that way, I believe, as well.
I think the others all have 2 as well. No more comments, so I can check and we have a vote.
Okay, Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Yes.
Director Marsh,
Yes.
Director Randall, and Director Grant.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Next one on the list of appointments is consideration of appointing a representative to the San Mateo County chapter of the Special Districts Association. The Special Districts Association meets once a quarter, I think, for the last pandemic years. They've been doing that by Zoom.
Can we have two? Because it's recommended that new directors attend these.
I don't know.
I don't know either what their bylaws are. I think we've historically done one representative and one alternate. And just as a little bit of background, the California Special Districts Association is an industry association, and then they have sub chapters in each county. So that's what this is for.
The San Mateo County chapter.
Right.
I'm interested.
And that's correct, Chuck. We had a representative and an alternate because I was the alternate and have been to a couple of these meetings.
Matthew, when they met in person, was it like half a day, once a quarter, something like that?
It was in the evening, so it wasn't that long, and it was right over the hill in San Mateo.
Okay. It's not a lot, but there's some benchmarking and speeches and information. So Jill, you're interested?
Yeah, I just want to find out more. And it said to do it in the handbook. It said new members should do it. So.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to appoint Jill Brandt as our representative to the Special Districts Association with Jen Randall as the alternate.
I'll second. Can we find out if we can both go though at the same time? Because it would be nice.
Yeah, Delia, can
Yeah,
you?
I actually made a call to them before I left on my trip, and I don't know if they try to call me back or email me, but I will follow up with them and ask that question and get back to you.
Thank you, Delia.
Is the game still?
I didn't have much experience over there, but once I went as the alternate and our appointed representative showed up then anyway. So we had two there, and several of the other agencies sent two representatives. So I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, I don't think it's that formal.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have a vote?
Did we get a second?
We did. Jill seconded.
Okay.
Barbara moved, Jill seconded.
Okay. I will call it Director Dye.
Yes.
Director Clark.
Yes.
Director Marsh.
Aye.
Director Randall. And Director Grant.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on. Okay, we're gonna have this many bitty things. Consideration of contract amendment with Kikuchi and Kenkel for additional landscape design for the proposed community recreation center. This is held over from, I think, the October meeting, but we did ask them to work with Group 4 on the landscape design to integrate it with the park landscape design for the community recreation center. So any questions or discussion on this proposed?
Yeah, I have questions.
Hi, Jill.
Okay, so do we call them K and K, or how do we do? Okay, that's what I thought. So K and K is working with BKF engineers to develop the bid plans. Is that correct?
Yeah, so on the staff, we've got K&K is doing the landscape architecture and BKF is the civil engineer.
Who's going to do the lighting? Is that part of the landscape plans or what?
That should be part of the landscape plans. We haven't really discussed that. I don't know if you all have in some of your separate meetings.
I think we were not having any lighting beyond what was absolutely required. So we're not lighting the park after dark.
Okay. Or the community center?
We haven't discussed. Go ahead. I mean, Barbara, I didn't know if you.
I know that the designers for the community center have that in their scope for the recreation center. And I know they're very very committed to dark skies and so forth. So we've already talked about that as a priority.
Was that with K&K or BKF that you talked about the lighting, or both?
Group 4. Group 4 is the community center.
So I just want everyone to be aware that BKF is the ones who did the lighting at the fire station on Obispo, and the one that people call the Walmart lighting. And
I'm not doing that.
yeah.
Not going to happen. Don't worry.
I just want to make sure that everybody can review the lighting before, because after the project's built, there's no enforcement. So we know that with Surfers Beach, the RV, lot. We've been battling them for years about excessive lighting, and it's just a big deal here, especially with the dark, view corridor.
In the ad hoc committee for the recreation center, we have talked about dark skies. So my assumption is we're going to have only the lighting that is required by permit, which might be a little bit of low lighting around the parking lot, but I'm not intending to light up anything that we don't absolutely have to.
And your board will see all of this.
Yeah.
You'll see multiple iterations as we go on. So you'll be able to review this stuff and certainly pick up the phone and call me or Delia or somebody and ask questions.
So we'll approve a lighting plan.
You'll approve a landscaping plan, which will have lighting as a part of it. And you'll see it as well with the actual recreation center.
And we'll see detailed plans for the recreation center that we have to approve. Yeah.
Okay. My next question is, does K&K have experience with native plant community designs like coastal prairie or restoration? I didn't see that on their website. I didn't see anything that had experience with native plants. And I think we're trying to go with natives, correct?
And I'll lob this to Barbara. Since she's
yes,
very interested in this.
So we should talk, Jill, about this. Yes, well, K&K does have some experience and interest in using native plants. The RCD is going to play a big role here for us. And I just actually met with our biologist from the RCD. We walked the bluffs the other day to talk about, she has some really good ideas about appropriate plant palettes and so forth. So I think this is an area where we should loop you in with your experience as well. So I think, yeah, it's going to be great.
Okay. So I'm kind of on the fence here because I'm new and I know I don't know everything. And I don't really understand why we're having them continue with the designs when we're still waiting for the initial studies. It seems like we should have initial studies first and then do these additional landscaping plans. Can someone explain to me why we're doing everything together instead of like piece by piece, like the normal schedule? Or do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, yeah, but to do the initial study, and again, I'm not going to pass myself off as a CEQA expert, but to do the initial study is we have to have that good project description. And I actually asked Kim Asbury, who's our consultant from Horizon Environmental, kind of these same questions, Jill, and said, what's the pacing and this kind of stuff? And she says, we've got to get a good project description nailed down. Part of the initial study is obviously project alternatives and things like that. So that's why we're working it in this method, this pattern.
Well, it seems like you do the biological and cultural, and then you pass that information on, and then plans, so everybody who's designing the plan knows the constraints. Instead of designing a plan, then doing the biological and cultural, and then revising the plans. But that's just doesn't seem as effective to me.
Well, we're still in the schematic phase of the plans, so we're not nailing anything down, and that's why they're kind of intertwined. As we get further, they talk, and that's why we have these all hands meetings once a month to allow them to coordinate with each other.
Who attends the once a month meetings?
Myself, BKF, K&K, Group 4 usually, Horizon, the Sequit people,
RCD.
RCD, Barbara, and is it Matthew or Nancy? I can't remember. Matthew, yeah. And they're the ad hoc committee for the park design.
How does one get on that ad hoc committee?
Those were assigned along the way, but Matthew and Barbara are ad hoc for the park, and Barbara and I are ad hoc for the rec center. We can swap those out. I think Barbara's thinking about an ad hoc just for the plant palette so she can loop you in.
Can I just say something about this contract extension, which is a significant part of it is extending the plan around the future community recreation center. That's what this extension, a lot of this extension is for. It's not to do more detailed plans. It's to, I mean, part of it is, but part of it is to integrate the new property into the plan, which has not yet been done.
You mean integrate the community center into the conceptual plan for the park?
Yeah, the landscaping. I mean, the Group 4 will do the building and the hardscape. They are going to work closely with K&K to do the landscape. We don't really have a landscape plan for the area around, even though there's a footprint and a design that's going to come to the board soon. K&K needs to start working on how to integrate the north end of the park and the Picasso property. That's what this is largely for. Right, Chuck?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Yeah. It's not for more detailed versions. There's a number of secondary plans that will come up later, probably based on some of the stuff in the CEQA documents.
Okay, so this would just be similar to, it would just be that conceptual plan extended to include the community or recreational facility.
Recreation center property, yeah.
So we'd have a whole new map then is that correct?
Most of the map will be the same. It will just be longer.
But we merged them and then now we're extending to include it. So it would be a new map, right? I mean.
Yeah, and they've already done some preliminary.
That's what Chuck showed us earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the map that Chuck showed earlier includes the community center property. Community recreational center.
We should just call it a rec center.
So you can see that to the left, Jill, to the north on the screen here. So they've already started integrating that and incorporating it.
Okay.
Oops, that was wrong.
And there may be some changes to the grading and so forth. So you're right that as we fine tune things, it means changes in other plans, but that's what's happening now.
Okay, one more comment. Now that I'm thinking of it, I just want to say it. I know it's silly, but this is another thing that people have told me is they are upset that the sign's upside down. So if we put out this new map, can we make sure it's oriented the correct way? So for example, the one up right now should be on Highway 1 facing the strip. That's how it's oriented. You guys get what I'm saying. Okay.
Absolutely.
We have heard it. I agree with it, actually.
Yeah.
The next iteration will be, at least in the sign, will be flipped around.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be made for if you're standing on Obispo Road.
Okay.
According to K&K,
Tom will have to turn around all of his little
yeah,
comments.
he has to turn a whole bunch of stuff around, but he can do it. That's what part of this contract's for.
Any other questions? No? If not, then did we have a motion to?
We need one.
Need a motion to
I move that we approve
amend the
the
contract.
extension of the K&K contract. The addition and
I'll
extension.
second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chuck, can you call the vote?
Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Randall,
Aye.
and Director Grant.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, next, the engineers report. And I know Chuck, just before the meeting, you sent out the document for the engineers report. I wasn't clear if we needed to approve something or if it's just for info.
No, what we've done is we have historically had the engineers report down on the information calendar later in the agenda, and several of you had requested it be moved up because, you know, there's a bunch of projects occurring in the district and we wanted to kind of highlight them more. So, you know, so what John Rayner has done is every month he gives a summary of the engineering work and construction work done for the previous month for our board meeting. And the 6-year CIP. So we're in phase 2 of a 6-year construction improvement project. Basically what we're doing is we went and TV'd a lot of the sewer lines. And we've identified we have actually, believe it or not, a lot of lines from 1920.
Actually, they're from 1908.
Right. So they're old lines. And what we've done is we've done a 3-phase plan, and each covers 2 years. And we're in the 2nd phase of that 3-phase plan. And we target the most disturbed and broken up lines for replacement, and that's what this project is now. It was supposed to begin and then end in January. The contractor's been delayed a little bit because he's having trouble procuring materials and whatnot. So as you'll see in John's report, he said they're going to change out some of the materials, which won't affect the actual sewer mains. And Barbara, you had asked me a question about that. That tracer tape is what they put above a sewer main. So when you do public works contracting, green is sewer, blue is potable water, and recycled water are purple pipelines. That's how people identify them when they're digging. So they put this green tracer tape above the pipeline. So if someone's digging and they put a electrical sounder down there, if you will, they'll know a pipeline's down there. Sewer mains are.
They can't get the correct green pipe. Is that what it said? They can't get the right kind of green pipe?
Yeah, it's difficult getting pipe now. They have a shortage of that. They have a shortage of what they call Blue Brute C900. It's, you know, the supply chain stuff. So this isn't that weird. I mean, I'd say 3/4 of our pipes, well, they're clay basically, so they're no color except clay colored. New PVC is oftentimes white, and they've just slowly gone to this green. So it's not a big deal. It's kind of what you have to do.
You're putting this tracer instead of using the correct color pipe?
You're putting white pipe in. I don't want to call it incorrect color because it's the correct pipe. It's just a different color. And this happens. Yeah.
And so they put a green strip on the top.
That's got a wire in it. Yes. And it alerts people that's a sewer main. You know, it's a bigger deal if they're hitting a water main or a gas main, as you can imagine. So.
And can you explain to people what pipe bursting is? Because I did not understand it when it was where I first heard about it. It didn't make sense to me. So this is what they do.
Basically what you got, as you can imagine, you have a sewer main and there's a manhole here and a manhole here, and then there's a 250-foot sewer main, 7 feet underground. What they do is they set up in one of those manholes, and they've got a machine that goes in and it literally bursts the pipe. It hydraulically bursts it like that, and then they tow in the replacement pipe in there. And it's just an easy, economical way of replacing the thing. They don't have to open trench now. They don't have to dig up the street, go down 7 feet, store up the trenches, all that kind of stuff, and then repave it. And the repaving job's never as good. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. So that's what they do.
Can you have someone send the map that shows where the projects are starting now and to the board members? Because
I'll send around.
I posted it on Nextdoor for people, and I had at least one person say what they wanted to see the blow up, which is good. People should know what's happening in their street. I will say that the last time we did this, our contractors did a much better job than the other contractors have done at patching the street and leaving it very nicely fixed. One more question. What's my other question? Never mind. Never mind.
And I'll point out
Oh, I know.
as a public works contract, what happens is we go out to bid and it's a public bidding process. And then, in this case, I think 5 people bid on the project. We're required to select the low bidder. So we don't get a choice. We all like contractors better than others, but the low bid wins. And that's who got this.
Now they have this deadline. If they don't make the deadline, are they really going to pay up that penalty to us? Or there's going to be some agreement?
Yeah, we have the discretion to extend it. And if obviously if they can't get material, that's a problem plaguing everybody, for the past 2 or 3 years, certainly. So we generally work with them. You don't want to get into that thing of
that seems
doing, $500 a day damages. It's just no reason to do it. So unless, if they take 6 months, you're doing it. If they don't, which these guys aren't, you move ahead.
It seems like it'd be better if they take their time and do it right than trying to meet some arbitrary deadline.
Yeah, and this happens all the time, obviously. This is nothing strange.
But we should feel good about this.
One of the reasons that tracer tape is a great advance is that many delays always happen because when they had to trench, it would encounter things that were not marked because a lot of utilities they have really very little idea where their pipes are. And now when new pipes go in, whether they're burst or trenched, they put that tracer wire in, and especially things that were placed in 1908 or 1920, it's hard to determine where they are. So those delays have been greatly ameliorated by that. And as Chuck said, it's a lot cheaper to not have to trench.
Yeah.
I have one more
last
question.
time they had to trench on Palma because the pipe was not where it was supposed to be. But they didn't trench most of it. I had a question that went in and out of my head. They are set up on Isabella now, so they are off and running.
I had one more question, which said that they discovered that there were some additional problem pipes by doing a TV inspection of other pipes that weren't in their contract. Is that what happened? That's
well, what happens in the 2 intervening years, we developed this 6-year CIP. In the 2 intervening years, other things come to mind. The biggest one that comes to mind is the one at the Murata Bridge there, where we discovered that the pipelines were severely deteriorated, and we added it to the last project. And that's the kind of stuff we do. And Delia will alert, John Rayner, our district engineer, if she's had issues in the past 2 years, that kind of stuff.
Thanks. I feel good about our CIP program. We should feel proud that we are constantly making things better.
Is Kleos Engineering the same people who did the first stage of this project 2 years ago, or is it a different company?
They're different. Was it Bay Park? Do you remember, Delia?
We have never used the current contractor that won this last bid, and I don't remember.
It was Bay Pacific or something like that.
Yeah, we've used so many over the years.
Yeah.
Bay Pipeline, maybe.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear the last comment.
I didn't. Yeah.
Oh, I think maybe it was Bay Pipeline. They're another
Bay
one
Pipeline.
around the
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I've got on that.
All right, we'll move on to report on the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast meeting.
Matthew, you want to go? Or I could talk about the finances first. It's good. I think we're getting better
about the finances.
Yeah.
I can do the meeting summary.
Hey, go ahead.
First, the first October meeting and the second November meeting were canceled. So we have the meeting of October 24th and November 14th, and then we just had the meeting last Monday for the first December meeting. I don't think there will be a second meeting. Oh no, there will be a second December meeting. In October, we got a status update for a hydrodynamic flood modeling that study that's being done, and I was rather surprised how extended in time it's become. And part of the reason is that they don't have enough information. The consultant, what is that? I forget the name of them. But planner, a fellow on the Half of a Planning Commission, Jimmy Benjamin, who lives right at the nearest corner house to the trench that is a official waterway and runs under the highway and all the way down to Pillarcitos Creek, came on, and because he's been flooded, he has actually hired flood control people, water flow engineers, et cetera. And he had a lot of information that the consultants didn't have. And so that's one of the reasons that this study is now going to be extended. And now it's not due, probably won't be done until March. And this is a plan, a model that will allow Sam and engineers to figure out what should be done about the treatment plant and the rising sea level and the potential from flood in the other direction from Pillarcitos Creek. So that several months into 2023, they'll get that plan, and then the next step will be to develop a mitigation plan. And this is mostly pointed toward the completely underground electric building, where back in December of what was that, 2013, almost flooded. So something big has to be done about this flood situation. And this is I'm going on a bit here because that's going to mean big bills for the member agencies. We also had a summary report about the non-domestic waste source control program, and Sam listed 8 businesses in GCSD, 1 in MWSD, and only 1 in Half Moon Bay that they are currently paying attention to, I guess is the term, on non-domestic permitting. And as whether or not they're actually billing all of those people is not actually clear to me. But even if they are, the great majority of the money that comes to pay for this program comes from Rocket Farms, because they have a significant program that puts in non-domestic waste, basically brine, into the sewer system that they have to pay extra for. In November, the employee evaluations process has been restarted. Seems like it actually never goes away, but we have that will extend for some more months, and it will also will include an evaluation of the district council's opinions on how the district council's been doing for SAM. Although at the last meeting, we already extended their contract for 3 years. On that one, and I think we should pay attention to this because the district north of us has just done this too. Board district compensation has been discussed. This went through the board ops committee and then to the full board, and SAM's has not increased their board director compensation since 2004. It's still $100. So apparently how much this can be increased per year is in a different
5%
code.
per
I think
year.
it's 5% a year from, and it's not cumulative. It's 5% from the 2004 figure. And so starting next year, February, I believe, the compensations for SAM district board members will become $190 per service day. And there's an elaborate, but actually very clear description of what that means, because board meetings, standing committee meetings now will also count.
Matthew, I wanted to, so I sat in for Barbara at this meeting, so that resolution was interesting. They had to pass a resolution to define the days of service if they are beyond their public meetings. And they included things like going to the CSDA or ad hoc committee meetings. They don't have to be public meetings. And so it will be, when we get to future agenda items, I may bring that up for us to consider, less on the amount that our directors are paid for day of service, but more on how we define day of service. Because with the project team meetings now that we have for the park and for the recreation center, it's a lot more than the one meeting a month for the public meetings. So I think we should at least consider that.
Thank you. I was going to also bring that up as a future agenda item. And at that time, I was going to ask Delia what I'll ask her now instead. Delia, as far as I can recall, 20 years, the director's compensation has been the same. Is that correct? Do you know when it was last raised?
Are you talking about our director compensation, or no? Ours changed from 100 to 145 when Jonathan Whitwer was our attorney, and I don't remember how many years ago, but it's been for quite a while. And he did the same process, the 5% at whatever point in time that was. It came up to 145. In fact, we have been paying the SAM directors the additional $45 for each SAM meeting because you only get 100 from SAM. So that will cease when the SAM director fee goes up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I never understood why that was.
Yeah. It's
Well, none of
something
us
under the water code that allows the additional payment above and beyond what's stated in the sanitary district code originally, is what it was.
None of us do this for the money, but it is nice to get a little bit of to cover costs and so forth. So it is appreciated.
And if I could just make one more comment. I know that SAM, and I was given this information directly from their general manager, they are not billing the customers for the non-domestic wastewater source control program, nor are they billing them the annual fee for fog inspections, which they've always billed the customers for. That is now being all billed to the districts, which means that everybody pays for that, which I think is not the right way to do it. They claim that they're doing it that way because the general managers decided as such, but when I spoke with our general manager, he disagreed with that assessment. So I don't know why, but they're not billing the customers for that right now, from what I understand.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda. Thank you, Delia.
Yeah, and we were set to revisit that. We had discussed this with the board a year ago, and then we were set to revisit that come January. We're going to give it a year and see what happened.
And then at the December meeting, Proper Accountancy presented the annual comprehensive financial report and the audit for the previous fiscal year. And this was completed much more rapidly and apparently easily than in previous years. And Director Dyer was really happy about that. And and as I mentioned, the legal counsel's contract was extended for 3 years. They raised their rates 11% to compensate for inflation, but that 11% will continue through the entire 3-year extension. They do, and again, this has a lot to do with Director Dye's urging. the CIP progress and projects are now depicted in several bar graphs that really illustrate what they're doing and how far they've gotten, and whether they've come in under or over budget. And generally the ones for 21, 22 are finished or nearly finished and are in good shape. The new 22, 23 are also, I only noted 2 that appear to be going a bit over budget. So those tables are, and the new directors who are looking at SAM will want to take a look at. This is a new tool for the board to assess how the CIP has been done, and they've refined it again, I think largely on suggestions by Director Dye. So those bar graphs are something that you should pay attention to.
I do want to add
a
my
presentation by council on the new rules for hybrid meetings that apparently are going to come back next year. But this is all up in the air, as we all probably know. The COVID, RSV and flu season is on us big time, and it may be that the governor extends the ability to have only virtual meetings well into next year, but currently they are slated to, we'll have to figure out how to do hybrid meetings starting in February. And that was the highlights of those meetings.
I have one thing to add, which is
So to speak.
in the annual report. I will note that for October, Granada Community Services District used 17.33% of the capacity at the water treatment plant. This is down from 30% 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. When I joined on the board, we were using 30%, and that's what a lot of the things. So this is a compliment to the people of El Granada who are using less water, because the water comes into your house and goes out. So this saves us money because we pay our share of the SAM costs based on our percentage use of the facility. So this is good news.
So I noticed
That's right.
Half Moon Bay is up to
Half Moon Bay's
64%.
been running about 64% this year, which cost them a lot more money and might have something to do with why they're spending more to appeal the lawsuit.
As wealthy enclaves,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as opposed to the poor folks in Half Moon Bay.
Now.
I had noted that same thing, and it does, it's the operating, it's not the capital is still allocated. Capital projects are 50% Half Moon Bay, and is it 30% Granada and 20% MWSD? But the daily operating costs are based on these percentages, right?
Right? I don't think so.
No, that switched over when they started the infrastructure budget. So the CIP is part of the infrastructure budget.
It's part of the overall budget, so it's done by use.
By these, even better. Okay. Okay. Anything else on SAM? Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
I'd like to call the item 10, the meeting minutes for the October meeting.
Before you do I have to read all the items on the consent agenda first?
No, you don't.
Okay, good. Okay, Barbara would like to pull the October 10th regular meeting minutes. I noted that it says December 2022 warrants, but I don't think we had those in the packet.
You have all, you basically have all the warrants up till we did the cutoff, which was sometime last week. So
You should have 3 months worth. Unfortunately, it's normally not like that. You would normally only get 1 month, which would be December, but you should have October and November as well, because I wasn't here in October to do October. I was ill for a month, and then the November meeting was canceled. So we carried those all over to December.
Okay,
But we
I'm
did
in
them separately.
A meeting packet had one that was labeled October and one that was labeled November, but we didn't have one that was labeled
Oh, you
December.
should have had one. I don't know what happened then. You should have one for December as well. So I apologize for that. I guess we can add that to next month. If you don't
Yeah.
have it, you can't really approve it.
Okay. Barbara, help me with the process.
I
Do we
just
talk
didn't-
about the meeting minutes before we vote on the rest of the agenda, consent agenda?
Well, I think I could just, we could approve it with one. I would just like to revise the description of the October meeting. I don't know that it printed out. I print out everything I'm going to comment on, and I don't have that.
Barbara, I have it in front of me.
Yeah, can you read what it says?
It says that multiple parents whose children attend the existing daycare on the site express their opposition to the future community recreation center. I would advise that to say they express the desire to keep the existing daycare, as some of them did, or include daycare and preschool within the new recreation center.
Yes, that's why I was pulling it. I think that's a better description of what happened at that meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily opposition to the rec center. It was opposition to having no daycare.
Okay.
Some was outright opposition to the community center.
Well, but I don't think that was a fair representation of what.
It's more keep the preschool as is, which you could interpret as opposition to any community center, but it's more advocating to keep the preschool.
I listened to it today of the video recording, and they pretty much all of them, except Lenny Schultz, wanted to incorporate the preschool into the center, and Lenny wanted to scale down the overall.
Okay, so
I
we'll
think-
revise that and bring it back for final approval at next meeting.
No, we can revise it now and approve it as amended.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bill?
I just want to note that you're not approving the December warrants, so the motion should indicate that the December warrants aren't being approved since that's listed on the agenda.
Okay.
All
Jill,
right,
did you have another comment? Your hand is still up. Okay.
I guess I move approval of the consent agenda with the October 20th meeting minutes as amended, and the warrants for October and November, and not December.
Second.
That was Jill for a second.
And the remaining consent agenda, there's a couple more items.
I am moved
Yes.
approval of the consent agenda with those two changes.
Any further discussion? We have a vote.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Yes.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Randall, and Director Grant.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0 as amended.
Okay, moving on to.
Nancy, can you do me a favor and take a shot of that and email or text it to me
Yeah.
of your language?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Moving on to any committee reports on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings?
Nope.
Nope. Attorney's report,
No report.
general manager's report.
I have nothing further.
Wait,
Wait, Barbara, you asked me,
so you
remind me.
would just report that we're looking at hiring an executive search
Oh,
firm?
thank you. Yeah. So I don't know if you're all aware, I'm sure Delia told you, but she'll be retiring come June, and I'm quite jealous, obviously. So, so she's been here 22, 23 years. So,
23 it'll be 24 years almost when I retire.
Okay, so it'll be difficult to replace because she's got a huge institutional knowledge, obviously, and whatnot. And then she's been great for us, but we're going to have to replace her, obviously. So I've contacted a bunch of search firms, and we're getting proposals from them to send out, the job search for that replacement. And I've been in contact with two. I'm supposed to get a proposal from one tomorrow. I've gotten one yesterday from another. So that's the process we're following right now.
And I think the plan is to do quite a bit of outreach in our community and on the coast side. Ideally, we would find someone here, number one. And number two, one of the first step would be to put together a job description.
Yeah. And we've got a job description. It's not really suited for an ad, but that's part of what we're working on right now.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
Administrative staff report, Delia?
I just wanted to point out that there were 5 permits issued during this period, and one of them was quite a big project. It's for the Pillar Point RV park. They actually are calling it the Harbor Village RV Park. I just want to mention it because it's going to be 43 RV spaces, 8 tent spaces, and a building that will house their laundry, restroom, and shower facility. And the district collected over $100,000 in connection fees and another $400,000 that will go into the assessment district on that project. It's going to be on the corner of Capistrano and Highway 1. So I think it was also mentioned in our engineer's report.
Good.
Sorry.
But they haven't started doing anything on that site yet.
No, they just got the permit in November, so they have to go and get their building permit still, so it'll probably be a little while.
Yeah.
But it's been in the works for several years, so.
There was also a permit issued for the new restroom they're going to build over on the Surfers Beach side of where the other RV park is, which I think is going to be a benefit to the community. So
yeah, that was by the Harbor District, pulled that permit, yeah.
And that will be starting in February or March, according to Delia's report, finally. Future agenda, no other hands up. Future agenda items, Matthew and I both mentioned reviewing our policy and procedures for directors' compensation, referencing the SAM resolution on the same topic from their November meeting. We'll pull that up for discussion.
You usually the president appoints the subcommittees in, I guess, at the January meeting. So you can think about that.
Oh, okay. You mean the ad hoc committees?
Yeah.
We don't have any subcommittees. And just as a reminder,
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Subcommittee would have a quorum and would have to have noticed in public meetings. So, but we'll review our ad hoc committees.
And we'll play it by ear a little bit because Matthew just brought up RSV and the flu and everything else. We're going to have to figure out what we're going to do come February, March. So, we'll see what happens over the course of next month. I've talked with a lot of industry people, obviously. There's pure Zoom, which may go away. There's hybrid, and then there's all in person as well. So, but we'll have to talk about that at the next meeting.
We should have that as a future agenda item and maybe benchmark, or maybe you can contact the Coastside County Water District is already doing hybrid meetings with some in person and some on video. And I think my one concern is maybe getting some advice from Pacific Coast Television on what they would need to make the sound and the recording work when you have some people on the TV and some people sitting in the room. I think the sound I'm doing hybrid meetings with my other board, but we don't have to have it recorded by TV. So it's a little easier just to have a little conference mic. Michelle, I know Michelle, you're going to comment probably on the hybrid meetings. Go ahead.
So Coastside County Water District has a wonderful hybrid Zoom setup. And I actually suggested to Sam that they use it, because you guys are talking about recycling, and I think it might be like synergistically bonding, if you use the same room, those be an excuse to talk to their staff and their board, and they definitely want to talk with Sam. So that was one idea. The other idea is CFPD right around the corner also has a completely usable Zoom room. So you don't necessarily have to, reinvent the wheel. Also, I think it was Jeremy at SAM. He did a really awesome chart on 361 versus 2449. What you get from each of them, why they're more complicated. But if you don't want to reinvent the wheel, I suggest that you just, use existing Zoom rooms. Because setting up a Zoom room is actually fairly expensive. It's Harbor District. Oh, the Harbor District has a Zoom room right below you.
Oh, good information. Thank you.
Yeah.
I did talk to the deputy chief, Jonathan, whose other name will come to me in 15 minutes.
Jonathan Cox.
Thank you. He said that they have not used their room for general public meetings because they don't have parking. So I think that's their one restriction, but Harbor District certainly sounds like one we could benchmark.
Well, there you go.
Dave Olson, go ahead. Dave.
Yeah, one thing to watch out for on Zoom room.
Sorry, Dave, you need to be closer to your sound.
Sorry, let me adjust my sound settings here.
I can hear you now.
Okay, adjusting the Zoom. There we go. That should be a lot better.
Yes. It is.
So one thing to watch out with Zoom rooms is you really want a room where you can have the board, the public, and the Zoom setup. And most Zoom rooms are not big enough for that. What MCC did and never went live because your room wasn't available at the time was work with PCTV, who had already done it with some other boards at that point. And we went with a fairly straightforward, set up an omnidirectional microphone in front of the board table, used the PCTV camera and their omnidirectional mic to do Zoom feed. And we bought a monitor. We went cheap. We bought a $200 24-inch monitor to use so that the board could see, or the council in our case, could see whoever was on Zoom. And that was hooked up to a laptop so we could see chats as well if you want to do chats. So that whole setup was like $375. Oh, and a couple of Bluetooth speakers also hooked up to the laptop so we could hear the Zoom questions. So PCTV can handle the outgoing side great. It's what you have in the room that you need to deal with. So just be caution, you really need to be able to accommodate the board and the public with the Zoom setup.
Great, thank you, Dave. Well, sounds like a perfect thing to have on our next agenda, unless we discuss it too much on tonight's agenda, since it's not on the agenda. With that, I think we are done. We need do I just adjourn or do we need a motion to adjourn?
No, you have all the power, Nancy.
Well, it was kind of a long meeting because we had a lot of bitty stuff to do, but thanks everybody for hanging in. Welcome again to Jen and Jill. Thank you for jumping right in and participating. And we will see you all in a few weeks. Have a wonderful holiday, get some rest and relaxation and take some time off.
Thanks, everybody.
You're adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, guys.